I'm going to start, and I'm not Giannina Braschi. My name is Cristina Garrigós, and I am the president of the organizing committee. And I hope that you are all having a good conference. So I am here to introduce Giannina Braschi. Unfortunately, due to health reasons, Giannina could not travel or join us online today due to the time difference with New York, where she lives. So I am going to say a few words about her and her work, and then we will watch a conversation that she recorded with me the other day for this occasion, and a dramatic reading on a fragment of her work, The Return of the Eternal Sardine, performed by the author and by Hollywood actor Raphael Corkhill. Since it is recorded, there will be no questions after that. So after that, I will come up here again to give you a few announcements, but that will close the morning session. Okay. Okay, so Giannina Braschi was born in San Juan, Puerto Rico, but she is based in Manhattan. As Tess O'Dwyer, the editor of the volume Poet, Philosophers, Lovers on the writing of Giannina Braschi that was published recently by Pittsburgh University Press, said, Braschi writes cross-genre works that are structural hybrids of poetry, fiction, essay, theater, manifesto, and political philosophy. Her titles include the poetry epic Empire of Dreams, published first in Spanish, El Imperio de los Sueños, the Spanglish novel Yo-Yo Boing, and the geopolitical tragicomedy United States of Banana, about the fall of the American empire and the liberation of Puerto Rico. Braschi's literary education and life spent navigating between English and Spanish have contributed to her hybrid personality, which in turn resonates in her work and her alter ego. Her writing, as well as the identity of the author, is the result of the dynamic exchanges between the two cultures, the Anglo-Saxon and the Hispanic. As the writer said, and I quote, "Yes, I am a hybrid. There are Spanish poets that I know by heart. I have Quevedo, I have Juan Ramón, I have García Lorca, Machado, Becker. I arrived in New York grounded in the poetry of García Lorca and Juan Ramón Jiménez. I also had the poetry of Eliot, Joyce, and Beckett. In addition, we find that many other authors, including Shakespeare, Cervantes, Dante, Petrarch, Neruda, Vallejo, Rubén Darío, Heine Müller, and Gertrude Stein, mold the personality of the Braschian character and alter ego Giannina, and their voices and names resonate throughout the text, thereby establishing a conversation among them channeled through Braschi. In Braschi's work, which in my opinion are to be understood as a continuum, there are many elements that make it difficult for us to analyze her text without referring to the author. For starters, she names herself as a character who engages in conversation with numerous alter egos. A poet and actress, Giannina brings words to life, assumes the role of characters, creates identities. For instance, in El Imperio de los Sueños, Empire of Dreams, her first work, written in Spanish, Uriberto Eisenbeck, Giannina plays the role of Margarita Samper, Berta Singemann, and Uriberto Eisenbeck. These characters are all clowns, malleable like Dove, indefinable and indistinguishable, multiple and fragmentary. There is always some confusion between authorial person and character, between fiction and reality. In Braschi's universe, and I quote, "I'm sorry to be simultaneously what I write. The narrator is also a product of my imagination. What I write seems unreal, but it's true. I want to lie, but I don't." Her second work, Yo-Yo Boing, written in Spanglish, In her second work, Yo-Yo Boing, written in Spanglish, the different voices form an anonymous chorus, And I quote, "An idea I took from T.S. Eliot, taking poetry out of the context of poetry, bringing poetry back to the theater, to dramatic voices." Braschi has remarked that she prefers not to belong to any land or languages. In effect, she lives in an interzone, far removed from Puerto Rico, but not entirely assimilated into the United States. Thus, the will not to belong, this rootlessness, this constant shifting from place to place, causes the author to unfold into multiple personalities, like the ventriloquist puppets that she collects and which spring to life in her hands, yet which she acknowledges residing in some realm between dependence and independence, clearly as her own creation. Braschi's work is dismembered and fragmented, but it bears constant connection between one text and another. In Yo-Yo Boing, dramatic dialogue predominates as in a play. Sections are included in verse, mixing text genre styles and languages, Spanish and English. At the end of the novel, the protagonist, Giannina, meets up with Zarathustra and Hamlet, who are on their way to bury the 20th century. The narrator wants to enter the new millennium with a new language and a fresh attitude. As she states, "We have to start tearing down the walls between the two Americas, and we, you and I, we have to be a spokesman because we are bilingual." Ultimately, they cannot bury the past. The past will continually resurface like the living death, like a soul that has been buried alive. The reference to burying the 20th century also appears in The United States of Banana, her last work, this time written in English. In Braschi's novel, a conversation is established among politics, literature, and philosophy, which serves to echo the condition of subalternity, invisibility, and silence of Puerto Rico, and Latinos in general. Braschi expresses a wish to free Puerto Rico and Latinos through her writing, and this task is given to Giannina with the help of Hamlet and Zarathustra. This is obviously an ambitious project, one that the author has been developing since the beginning of her career. The objective is not only to seek political freedom, independence, but to achieve ontological liberation, which can only occur, as the author suggests, by tearing down walls and engaging in constant dialogue. United States of Banana is composed of philosophical dialogues largely inspired by Plato's Symposium. Socratic dialogue provides Giannina with a platform for engaging with other literary characters, writers, country philosophers, as well as things and creatures like the Statue of Liberty, Oliver the Exterminator, and to reflect on global politics, liberty, the meaning of love, writing, life, in short, all the issues that are of concern to Braschi. Braschi's work has been widely adapted into other art forms, including paintings and wood carvings by Michael Sansky, short films, and a photography book by Michael Somarov, an artist book by Italian printmaker Giorgio Piglio, and a stage production of United States of Banana by Colombian theater director Juan Pablo Felix. Also, Puerto Rican composer Gabriel Bouchecaro shed light on his creative process in connection to his compatriot's work. The emerging musician discussed how he conceived of Foreign, a new composition for chamber ensemble with baritone voice. And he said, "I took fragments from chapters of Ground Zero, the first part of United States of Banana, and built my own libretto. It's a short piece, and it deals with the concept of identity, understanding, and communication expressed through my own prism in a musical sense." Braschi's musing also about the feelings of American immigrants and the sound of their foreign-speaking English prompted his own line of inquiries. Also, as Des O'Dwyer wrote in her article, "Popping Up in Pop Culture and Other Unlikely Spaces," Latinx author Giannina Braschi crosses over, and I quote, "Drawn to its raucous satirical elements, Swedish cartoonist Joakim Lindengren rendered a different section of United States of Banana into a Swedish language comic, both with poet and translator Elena Eriksson. Their adaptation focused on the aftermath of 9/11 based on Braschi's description of American life after the collapse of the World Trade Center. In response to the matrix of literary references in the original, Lindengren brought to this interpretation a dense overlay of quotes from iconic paintings, photojournalism, movies, illustrations, and cartoons that you can see, for instance, here, where they go to bury the Sardine, or here, where you have Fidel Castro and Captain America, Cuba. Okay. Braschi has also influenced, this is a chicken without head, the United States, the Statue of Liberty that comes to life. Okay. Braschi has also influenced the design of three-dimensional objects. When industrial designer Ian Stell of New York City announced his plans to design a chair that resembled a lamp, Braschi encouraged her friend to take this concept further. She said, make the chair function as a lamp. And that's what you have here. Also, architects have cited Braschi as an inspiration to include theoreticians and practitioners in the bourgeoisian field of ecological urbanism. Amidst growing attention to climate change, green technologies, and sustainable design, ecological urbanists draw from ecology to propose socially inclusive urban settings that are sensitive to the environment. Mohsen Mostafavi, Marina Correria, Ana Maria Duran Calisto, and others at the Harvard Graduate School of Design led a Latin American project that proposed remedial and long-range planning solutions for parks and river systems from Sao Paulo to Santiago. And every section of the book opened with a defining passage by Braschi that illuminated one of these 7 organizing principles that they said: anticipate, collaborate, feel, include, mobilize, curate, and adapt. Okay, currently Giannina Braschi is working on a new book entitled Putinoika. Her work addressed life during and since the Trump and Putin era. She writes, and I quote, "Before we were perestroika, now we are Putinoika. Before we had angels in America,
Putinoika.
Now we have Putinas in America. Just as Tony Kushner's play Angels in America tackled the AIDS epidemics during the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union, Braschi's new work, Putinoika, addresses the coronavirus pandemic and the overlapping issue of collusion and pollution, with an insistence on hope for higher expectation and trust in the human imagination to create new structures, ideas, concepts, and realities. Okay, and I would like to finish with a quotation from an article that was published recently in a journal, and she says, T.S. Eliot, The Wasteland, was published 100 years ago and still offers many insights and reflections on emotional and spiritual waste. Today, we need to focus more on the wastelands that have transformed the earth and caused climatic and environmental changes. We must examine the relationship between modern diseases of the body and the spirit, and how these are born from overproduction and waste. We also have to look at the waste of talents, opportunities, potentialities, all lost in the economic fervor that liquidates the ecumenical. Okay, and now we are going to listen to the conversation that I had with her and the dramatic reading of The Return of the Eternal Sardine. Okay, thank you. And now the video. Okay, so here we are with Giannina Braschi. And Giannina, thank you so much for accepting our invitation to be the keynote speaker at the conference of the European Association for American Studies. It is really an honor that you have accepted this invitation. It's an honor for me that you have accepted to have this conversation with me. And well, I know that for you, conversations and dialogues are very, very important in your work, in your books. We find all the time people asking questions, looking for answers, and people dialoguing with other people. You had that in El Imperio de los Sueños, in Yo-Yo Boing, and in United States of Banana. So can you tell us a little bit why is that? I mean, what is it in a dialogue that makes it attractive for you from a literary perspective and in life?
Well, what is attractive to me is the road. That when I dialogue with somebody, I'm walking and making a way to get to a different place, and to a different situation, and to make equivocations also. It's about equivocation and finding something, surprise, to not give a product with an expiration date, but to see the road of the thinking. The thinking process to me is interesting. The creative enterprise of the thinking or of the thought. That to me is interesting.
That's what it's attractive to you, right? The process.
More than creating a sculpture, a finished product, I want to see how the thing moves and how it develops, and the movements of the development of the things in the road. I prefer that than the sculpture, the total sculpture of the thing that is dead, in my opinion, and is stable. And I like instability, the instability of things, because life is unstable. And we're living in a precarious world, as we know. And I like to show the instability.
Yeah, we are living in a precarious world, and also, I mean, like, you know, that the title of the theme of our conference is wastelands, right? And how we are sort of living in wastelands now. Well, right now you're speaking from New York, and I don't know, what does the term suggest to you? I mean, this idea of the wastelands. I know that T.S. Eliot, he was a great influence for you, right? I mean, you've told me that several times, and how big and an influence his work was for you. Why is that? I mean, like, what do you think when you think of wastelands? What do you think of?
I think the wastelands of our minds, the wastelands of our opportunities. We have had many opportunities in life, and we have wasted them. As humanity, I'm talking as a human, as humanity, not as an individual, as a collectivity. The wastefulness that we have created in the world. And what I like of T.S. Eliot is that he created an event, and with the wasteland, he impacted the world by creating an event, a poem that is an event, because it was dealing with the world the way it was at the moment, and it was dealing in a philosophical and in a political way, and he made a change. He really made a change. He created an event. Very few poets do that. Very few poets talk about what's happening in the world, but in the mind, in the philosophical mind. And to me, that's very important. And that's what I want to do also, to touch those lands, like philosophers do sometimes, like Baudrillard did, and Badiou, and Franco Bifo Berardi, and those people have done. And Giorgio Agamben, they have done it. They are talking about things that are happening now. And I like that. And T.S. Eliot did the same. He did the same, and that's what I like to do.
Okay. When you mentioned philosophers in your last work, United States of Banana, well, the last work that it's published, I know that you're working in another text, on another text. So you, when you are mentioning the philosopher, the importance of philosophers in that novel, United States of Banana, you have your alter ego, Giannina, and she goes with Hamlet and Zarathustra to liberate Segismundo, right, who is trapped in the Statue of Liberty. That's great. I mean, like, so why did you choose these three characters, and why did your alter ego needed them to accompany her on this mission? I mean, why a poet, right, a philosopher, and a lover, as you have defined them? Why did you choose them?
Well, first of all, when I finished Yo-Yo Boing, I was going to bury the 20th century, but I didn't know it was going to be a sardine at that time. And then I knew that they carried dead bodies in their bags, in their bags. Hamlet did carry the body of Polonius, and Zarathustra carried the body of a man. He left it in a hollow tree to create the Overman, so supposedly. And to me, it was very interesting that they didn't bury those bodies. They left them. And I said, well, I'm going to bury the 20th century at that time. And then I realized it's a sardine because it's very small and he's a businessman and he's a economical man. So it's a man that is not ecumenical, it's not large, it's very small soul. It has a very small soul. So it's a sardine. And to me, Hamlet and Zarathustra, Hamlet, the poet actor, and Zarathustra, the poet philosopher, and Giannina, the poet child. I always had these three poets in my life, and they go together. All of a sudden, the poet child, the poet philosopher, and the poet actor had names. Hamlet, the poet actor, and Zarathustra, the poet philosopher. So that's how it all came out. It has been in me since the beginning. All of these things have been with me since the beginning, and all of a sudden they acquire characters. They become more real, and they have a presence. And then they walk with me, you know, and I really talk to them. I really talk to them, and they talk to me. It was an incredible trip. We even got into the crown as a ship, and we went to Puerto Rico. It was incredible. And that happened in reality. I mean, it was an experience.
And speaking of Puerto Rico, well, you are from Puerto Rico, right? From San Juan, and yes. It's always like well, it's always there, right? In your work, the presence of Puerto Rico, and you have discussed, well, especially, I mean, like, especially this last work. It's very political about Puerto Rico, and why is it? I mean, like, what makes you write about your native country? Why do you think you are inspired by it? I mean, what's your relationship with Puerto Rico?
Well, after living in New York for many, many years, as you know, all of a sudden I went to Harlem one day, and I was invited to see this concert about these opera singers who were very talented. They were like 70 years old and 80 years old. But I saw them and I said, you know, all this wasted talent that I see in Puerto Rico, wasted talent, because they have not been given the right opportunities. And I started crying. Tears came out of my eyes. And I said, I have to write about Puerto Rico. I had never written about it. And all of a sudden I said, I have to do it because they have been wasted. They're wasted people, and they have been leftovers or in this American society. So I had to write about it, because if I didn't do it, I would not be happy with myself. I would not understand myself. I would not find myself in a good place. I had to confront the beast. I had to confront my demons. And that's why I wrote United States of Banana. It came from a very deep place of understanding myself and of understanding my people, to get them to a better place than where they are.
And you actually talk about that in your work in United States of Banana, about how Puerto Rico is trapped in prison, right? And it has to be liberated. Yeah. And that's what you wanted to do, right?
I think I liberated in some kind of way. I liberated it. Like when I killed the coronavirus, in the Return of the Eternal Sardine, I killed coronavirus. I think I really did kill it. I really killed it. I mean, it might still be around, but I killed something important. I'm a healer of my writing. I try to be a healer. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's much needed, Giannina, I think. And you have lived, well, many different situations in your life. One of them was very close. Well, you live very close to the Twin Towers, right? 9/11 and on the terrorist attacks. And you have also written about that, and how that was for, you have said that on that day, everything changed, right? For you, but also for the world. Do you still think so? I mean, like, in what way? If we can speak about wastelands, because of all that happened in New York at the time. How do you think about it now?
I think it changed. Definitely changed our perspective of the American empire, that something could be destroyed so easily in a little moment, in a very small amount of time. 1 hour, 2 hours, something could be destroyed. The ego or the image of an empire could be destroyed like that. And it was destroyed in many ways. Since then, things have not been the same, as we all know. Things are changing every day more. And I think it was the beginning of what we're living now. Definitely, it was the beginning of the 21st century. I mean, everything changed, all the rules changed, everything. And we realized that nothing works, that nothing of what was works now. We realized that at that moment. I remember going to movies a year after, and saying, movies, they create dread on me. It's not working anymore, this genre. It's not working the way it used to work for me. And it was this event of 9/11 that changed everything, because you start looking for meaning in life, which we were not looking before, for meaning, deep meaning. And now I think we're trying to find deep meaning in life. And we're trying to get inspired, because we have not been inspired for a very long time. Humanity has not been inspired. And it has to be inspired to get to a higher level than where it is now. And I think that's why I love Greta Thunberg, and she inspires the world. She's like an Antigone, like all those Greek little girls that were transforming the world. Antigone, Electra, Cassandra, they were all young girls. I have them in my work. And they transform humanity. They are transforming humanity. And I think Greta Thunberg is one of them. She's inspiring the world. And we have to look for inspiration again, because we have not been inspired for a very long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's what you're saying, I mean, actually fits in very well with what we are discussing these days in the conference, because, as you know, I mean, again, going back to the idea of wastelands, right? You have mentioned, I mean, the many problems that the world has with the environment, environmental issues, right? And also the moral waste and material waste. Also, you have mentioned. how do you see the world nowadays? I mean, do you think that it's a wasteland already, or that we are doomed to live in one? Is there a place for poetry in this wasteland?
There's a lot of place for yes, poetry is totally needed because breathing is needed, and poetry is about breathing. I can't breathe, say the people in the streets, because they can't breathe. They cannot be inspired by what's happening. Breathing means inspiration. When you breathe well, you're inspired. And that's what we need in the world, inspiration. And poetry is inspiration. And poetry is noise. And new noises create new values. And out of these new noises, we have to scream. We have to scream again and be in contact with each other and love each other again. And create something new, which we haven't done in a very long time. We have not put our heads together to create something new. That's what we have to do. And work with our minds. We're too much into computerizing our heads. We follow computers, and computers are controlled by other people, and there's not a freedom in thinking. And without thinking, there's no progress in humanity. We have to think new.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, definitely much needed words. And when you say that we have to think new and we have to do new things, and that poetry is needed, in your case, I mean, like, you have done poetry in Spanish, in Spanglish, in English. Do you think there is a language for that poetry has any language in particular, or like what do you think of the language of poetry? Is there a language?
The language of poetry is humanity. The language of poetry is the suffering of humanity, but not the suffering only, the laughter, the screams, whatever humanity is doing, poetry has to capture it. And it has to create an event. It has to create an event like T.S. Eliot did it, because he was targeting the issues of the moment. And that's what poetry has to work at, because it's not contemporary, very contemporary sometimes. It has to really get into the political and the ecumenical, into the changes of the sensitivities in the human beings, into the moods of the sensitivities of the human beings. It has to understand that, the temperament of humanity.
And about this event, do you think you are working on something now that you would like to share with us? I mean, like, can you tell us a little bit about what you are working on now, your future work is? Can you tell us a little bit?
My new work is called Putinoika. As you know, Putin is very, very famous now. Putinoika has to do with the world as it is in New York, and the influence of Putin in Trump also, and all of it, and the virus, how it came, and I capture everything of the virus now. I try to capture it in the return of the eternal sardine and in other places also. So that's what my work is about. I'm still writing it. I'm getting there to the end.
And we are looking forward to reading it, and to, we have to say thank you to you, and goodbye for now. We are going to listen to yourself reading from your new work. And thank you so much, Giannina, for being here with us and for sharing your thoughts on poetry, on the wastelands, and the United States and the world in general. And we are looking forward to reading your work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cristina, and to the conference for giving me the opportunity of speaking, of talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And here comes the sardine again. That stinky, rotten sardine coming back to life to inflict us with more suffering from the past, with more delusions of grandeur, with its smelly smell, diffused with oils of resurrection, law of attraction, ambergris, enchanted dreamers, love force, exorcism, midnight warrior, higher power. But underneath all these mighty smells, evaporated and rotten, was the smell of the stinky sardine of the 20th century, passing itself off as a grand dame of the 21st and infecting us all with coronavirus. I could smell its smell coming from the underground as Eurydice from hell, and I put on all my enchanted oils so that they would enchant the snake and make it dance in front of me, and I would send it back to where it belonged, back to hell. That stinky sardine came back to life like the nose of Gogol, with a pretension, as if it didn't smell like a rotten sardine, as a grand dame, as if it were red caviar served in a Russian roulette, spinning wheel, captain go round. Who is next? Another one bites the dust, poof, dead. And it had a red cape over its black jumpsuit and a dimple in its cheek that used to laugh at all of us when it was alive. But don't forget it is dead. And it is a stinky sardine with the high pretension of a grand dame who doesn't know her place. It's a nose, but it pretends to be walking up Madison Avenue, up with the sniff and the snuff of the nose of Gogol. That is a snob that pretends to be higher up than it is. It walks without legs, but it has a smell, and when it smells, it leaves you without smell and taste. It numbs you because the smell of death leaves you numb.
The most intriguing thing about this stinky little thing is how it has acquired charisma. It's the charisma of having cheated death, of coming back with the appearance of a body that is alive but stinks to high heaven. I used to love this stinky sardine when it was alive. It was pretentious, but it had spunk. Now it has delusions. I pity the moment when all the people the stinky sardine has infected with delusions of grandeur wake up from the numbness in which this stinky, as if it were alive, walking around without a mask over its nose. And at times, that stinky smell spooks us, as it did to Pendejo after he learned from the press that he had the stinky sardine inside him. Puff. That smell, that numbs our senses and leaves us spooked, unnerved, and acting without any sense, senseless, but above all tasteless and smellless, smelling spooked, and without a smell. The stinky sardine cannot tell who has it and who has it not, like Gretchen. It loves me and it loves me not. It loves you not. It loves you not, I can tell, but it spooks you and leaves you without a smell, smelling a rotten egg. First, she had to disguise that she was a nose. Then she had to disguise that she was a sardine. And lastly, that she was dead. And that she had had such an important burial, where Hamlet, Zarathustra, and Giannina had buried her as the symbol of the 20th century. So when she came back as a manifestation of coronavirus, she was hiding in a triple whammy her three identities: nose, sardine, dead body. Nose, stuck up. No humility at all. The sardine pretending to be a nose, pretending to breathe, with her nostrils high up, while her little insect eyes could hardly see, so small and with such pretension. Hiding her stink under her red cape, and with that dimple open to the world, she was saying, I am better than anyone else. I came back from death. I cheated death. No one should fear coronavirus. I beat it up. You'd have to just kick it in the butt. She didn't realize she was the contagion. She didn't know she stunk of death. She didn't know who she was. She was a sardine pretending to be a nose, walking up Madison Avenue, looking to catch a rich fish in her network. Oh, yes, she knew how to work the web. She was a computer herself, a database of information and gossip. Everything registered as information in that nose of a stinky sardine to catch the rich fish in her net web. Everything was a knot, a web, not a net. She was a kind of spider web, with the pretension of a nose smelling with its nostrils high up. But the moment Tartuffe lost his nose in the presidential inauguration, she was in for big trouble. She had to hide that she had stolen Tartuffe's nose, and that she was a sardine, and that she was a dead body coming back from hell. She had to hide all three together. Everybody, including me, was touching their noses and finding no nose, but instead a big hole. We were all terrified of catching a little cold with a little cough. What will we do at the end of the day if we all start coughing and pretending we are a sardine, pretending to be a nose? And we don't find our noses anymore in the frame of our faces because they're all walking up Madison Avenue, smelling of sardines, stuck up, pretending to breathe and sniffing, catching a fish, a rich fish, in their nets, in their holes that can hardly breathe, and they're sniffing and coughing. We all thought we were alive, but we're dead. When we could hardly breathe, we protested in the streets and screamed, "We can't breathe." I lost my nose. I can't breathe, but I still have a mouth. I can catch a rich fish in my teeth. We were all looking for excuses. If you can't breathe through your nose because you lost it, a blessing in disguise. Good luck. Start breathing through your mouth. Develop a new breathing pattern. We always had the mouth as a second breather. Now it is not a vice president anymore. We will elevate the mouth to the position of the nose. It will continue eating and talking, but now it will become the primary income of breathing, smelling, and tasting too. It will multitask like a computer or an octopus. I was the first one who recognized the sardine in the nose, pretending to catch a rich fish. I said, "Here comes the sardine again," pretending now to be the nose of Gogol. It is not a pretension. It is what it is, a fake dimension, an illusion that will become a delusion. It will inflate the markets as a tick, and then it will deflate them with a depression. It is looking at the eclipse, and you are not supposed to look at the eclipse. It will leave you blind. And it is not wearing a mask. It's wearing a cape. And thinks it can disguise itself as a sardine pretending to be a nose, and that nobody will recognize the pretension of a dead body coming back to pollute us all. Let me remind you, we are not as stupid as we pretend to be. There is a point of no return. When we will all look at the hole in our faces, and we will miss the noses we have lost, and we will not let a sardine pretending to be a nose degrade us more than we already are, pretending, all of us, that it is a blessing in disguise to lose a nose, because now the mouth has to become a multitasker and has to breathe through one hole, the one of the trachea. So if now we can simplify our functions and breathe less through one mouth, count yourself lucky. A blessing in disguise is coming. Maybe we will win the next election. And when the new president is installed, our noses will appear again the day after the inauguration. Tartuffe will recover his nose too, when he wakes up in the morning and looks at himself in the mirror with his nose in place and not smelling like a stinky sardine full of fear of catching coronavirus through the nose or the mouth. If they get infected, I'm so sorry. They wanted to hug and kiss me. I love to be kissed on the top of my nose. I was so moved by the kisses and the hugs. They thought I looked like a rosebud. I did have a peak. The peak of my nose, full of enchanted oils. But the bud, when it smelled, had thorns that were peeking. They were on the peak, and as I peeked around the corner of Madison and 89th, a policeman stopped me. "What are you doing here without a mask? The virus is peaking again. And before we could foreclose on all the businesses, we saw you running around without a mask and peeking and sniffing. I have to fine you." "Fine with me. You will have to charge the face. I am part of that company of noses, ears, foreheads. I don't have a dime in my pocket, but my company could pay." "Why aren't you wearing a mask?" "Because I don't want to hide my nose. It is peaking high. You are wearing a blanket around your throat. I don't want to catch pneumonia. It's getting cold. Show me your identity. Sardine, nose, dead body rejuvenated by essential oils. Are you a resurrection? I'm the president. I preside over a nation of noses that sniff high. They don't want to cough, but coughing happens despite us all. Are you spiking? I am spooking in disorder, in disarray, out of balance and place. I'm looking for a face where I can draw on a country and breathe again with relief and not be spooked. You stink. I stink since I came back from hell, looking for the nose where I can pose the dead body of a stinky sardine. Yeah, but keep looking for clues, detective. You still haven't found my origin. You are tracing me, but I've got many traces and few remitting addresses. Now that you are speaking to me, no one spoke to me before. I got this red.
To może rzeczywiście chodźmy. Jeszcze ma trwać kilka minut, ale to trochę jest bez sensu.
Morning, I have black underneath and a dimple to show a wink
Jak
of empathy
wrócimy, to zjemy. Coś tylko musimy pójść do sklepu węgierskiego.
Memory of an elephant and ears of a rabbit. I do run fast. I am tracking your movement and the pace of your peace to bring hell on earth. Oh, please. Bring peace on earth and spook the rest. And don't forget that the vice president, the mouth taking the place of the nose, breathing through the mouth without using the orifices of the nose. Why are they there if not to smell and breathe? This vice president, the mouth, had a fly on the top of his head, just standing there during the entire vice presidential debate. I wonder if the fly smelled the greasy Vaseline in his hair, or the stink of the deadly sardine in the air. Contrary to him, and to the Monsignor at the Catholic Charities Gala, who had ants crawling in and out of his white collar, something sacred, the halo of the white collar not emitting radiance, but deadlines and fundraising goals crawling in and out of the collar. Contrary to them, I had no flies nor ants. I had a green grasshopper, una esperanza, on the sleeve of my red jacket when I went to the park to exercise my angles, my postures, and my cadences. Now that I'm so alive and of a perfect physical specimen and so young, after dying of coronavirus, defying the deadlines of my condition, and so I am lucky in that way. A bad sardine never dies, and if it dies, it stinks until it finds a way to return and do what I was doing, repeating the conditions in which my behavior was called reprehensible. All my comrades either smell of death, or they have moths, or ants, or flies flying around their heads. I am the president, presiding over all the sardines that pretend to breathe in Congress through their mouths and in the Senate through their noses, and they can't breathe because their orifices are clogged by compromises and preconditions. They want to cut the foot off at the knee in order to get rid of their Achilles heel. Why does a nose have the power to cut the legs of the multitudes of wages off at the knee? I'm sure they fear their own Achilles heel, but when they look at their heel, they're not looking at what stinks to high heaven. They are cutting off the movement of the people at the knee. And what does a nose, pretending to be a breather of youth, overcoming coronavirus through a mouthful of vicious dogs and ominous weapons, pretending to be without a heel and a knee that gives movement, dynamism, and life to the stinky, deadly sardine of law and order in disarray of disorder, breathing through a deadly sardine, pretending to be a nose? Hope has wings. And then, when I turned on Madison and 89, the police tried to exterminate me during a raid. They were looking for the fly that stood on the head of the vice president, and I complained about my substance. I drank a tank of gasoline. Nothing makes me tipsy except gasoline on my tanks. This fervor I have to always send to sender makes me a predator. I proceed, I predate, I stand up, I run, I am not thorough. But I bring velocity, and when people achieve, sometimes they achieve with me, but then I wreak havoc without wanting it. It's just that I'm salty. My luck is not green like yours. It is compromised by a virus. To return from hell, I had to forget that happiness is a state of mind that has fruition. I'm not the happy kind. I'm salty and bring pain.
Whenever you see green, you stampede, predator, you possess. Oh, I feel good. There is music around, bees buzzing around, a sound of happening. Some weird happening was misunderstanding my state of accomplishment, where I could stand on my 6 legs and accomplish the hope I came to achieve. After missing the death you left behind, without tracking my innocence because you were predating all my predecessors. You wanted, who knows what you wanted yourself. Pleasure was the happening, but your achievement was regret, red with wings and sleepless nights. And I wouldn't say corruption, but decadence. Without remorse, you swam away and then poof dead like a tick on a dog's skin. But the return to defeat has made me rise in the middle of the stage to bring hope. What hasn't happened yet, what is not going to turn sour, and what has no regret. The intentions of my hope are not to get what I want by stealing what the other has, or getting as much as I can, only to fly away and come back after a hell to wreak havoc, but to bring hope, which has not been compromised, which is not a predator and doesn't empty your memory, doesn't evaporate proportions, give dimensions and creates music and bans the bewitched. Bewitching is kind of admitting you're not free. And then when you become free, because the predator predates you and takes you to that unreal state of memory where everything predates time, there are so many things you want to understand that when predating leaves you, you become obsessed with what is happening all the time that precedes time, because it comes with an achievement in its melodies. And when it arrives with precision, that's the moment of climbing and jumping and rising. Why is it that negation is essential to creation, as if a yes depended on a no? To stamp with innocence is affirmation again, as if good needed bad to step ahead, to have the obstacle as the stepping stone of the achievement. No, it is not a necessity to have hunger in order to give food. The emptiness has not to predate the vacillation or the accomplishment. The emptiness has not to predate the inspired state of accomplishment. Don't deal and steal with a stamp without reference to the past and memory, not following any leader. It was a misstep to stand high and ahead when nothing was forfeiting the life we live together. Oh, how romantic and nostalgic. Why do regrets bring misunderstanding? It was, and it is not romantic. And it was, and it is not a misunderstanding, and it is stepping to claim what is stolen, what has always brought delusions of grandeur. If you feel vertigo, it is because you're claiming a piece of hell. And earth is earthy, not hellish. It is rough, and it is dense, and it has what it has, not descriptions for description's sake. The eye was not made to describe. They see. They don't describe the things they see. They retain them. And when the eyelids close, they see them in the thought that passes in the brain like eucalyptus under the nose. In order to wreak havoc on earth, you have come back from hell, but I will bury you again and again. This year, I'm celebrating every new year of every religion, custom, and memory, every new year of every continent, and an hour ahead or 20 hours after I go to bed, I clean the havoc the Sardine brings with essential hopes to bring to earth the earthy, healthy, wealthy winds of inspiration to bathe away reprehensible behavior. But whoever reprehends has reprehensions and pretensions of being something else, a grand dame with a grand piano and high heels, going up Madison and 98th with an attitude of fortune stolen from misfortune. Don't listen to the tune of happiness when it is mixed feelings that claim another sardine, a new year. If it is a misstep, I will get out on the next bus stop and I will hop on the bus of the next new year. Good luck. Keep hope alive. And when the detective, Patrick O'Dwyer, arrives with the police to find out who murdered the sardine and send it back to hell where it belongs, they will find that it is redundant to find the murderers, because even though I kill it, throwing it against the wall and breaking its stick, the ticking inside the sardine, they will find out the sardine was not breathing through the nose nor the mouth because it was already dead. And even though I murdered it and threw its sticking head of a tick against the wall, I crack open its cranium and it shed plenty of blood, confused and diffused through its red cape of Little Red Riding Hood. No innocence in that blood, but a dimple in the cheek that is empty, with a rotten smile. And the detective had to claim it was attempted murder, but not a homicide. It was a double whammy because it was already dead. The murderess, Hope, Esperanza, is free to continue spreading its oil of eucalyptus. The nose was not breathing before it was murdered, and the mouth was open, but it was dead before it was killed again by Hope. The remnants of the sardine, pretending to be a nose, will be held in the Capitol for a week, flags at half-mast, because the stinky sardine was dead. Before it was killed, it killed more than 700,000 Americans and 4.5 million people worldwide. Before it was killed, it was already dead. Nobody will be accused of killing what was already dead. A green light will shine forever in the sky.
Well, thank you for being here, and thank you. I want to thank Giannina for reading and for being here with us on the screen. And she wished she had been here. We know that.